The woman couldn't believe her luck. She had just gotten a great deal on some beautiful furniture. It was only after she got it into her home that she noticed something strange. When she went to sleep that night, she never could have imagined what would happen next. The woman had seen the ad for the second-hand furniture on Facebook Marketplace and had immediately called the seller. The price was so good that there must have been something wrong with the furniture, but she didn't mind if it meant she could get a bargain. When the man arrived at her house to drop off the furniture, he was incredibly nice. He even helped her carry the heavy stuff into the house. It wasn't until after he had gone that she really examined what she had bought. There were 2 armchairs, a wardrobe, and a small cabinet. But when she opened the doors to the wardrobe, she noticed something strange. 2 beady little eyes were staring back at her from inside the dark space. "Oh my God," she said out loud. "I think we have a problem." At first, she thought it was just one animal, but then more started coming out. They were all different shapes and sizes, and they chittered loudly as they ran around the wardrobe. She decided to call animal control, but unfortunately they were fully booked and couldn't come and help her out for another 3 days. She just didn't know how she was going to cope with the situation. She tried to block the wardrobe doors with some heavy suitcases, but that only seemed to make the chattering and squeaking coming from inside worse. She knew she needed to do something about the situation before she lost her mind. Finally, the day came when the animal control officers were able to visit her and remove the chipmunks from the wardrobe. She let out a big sigh of relief as they put the last of the creatures into their little carrying cage. Now she could finally start to unpack her brand new furniture. It was then that she realized that there were hundreds of tiny little holes in the material. The beady-eyed creatures had been living inside the wardrobe for who knows how long and had chewed through the material like it was paper. "I can't believe this," she said to herself, running a hand over the damaged fabric. The animal control officer told her not to worry, though. He said that she should contact her local hardware store to see if they could fix the damage. As soon as she hung up the phone with the animal control officer, she received a text message. It was from the guy who had sold her the wardrobe. It read, "Hope you liked the furniture. I had a lot of fun refurbishing it, especially putting those little guys in there. You'll love having your own little chipmunk choir singing every morning." At first, she thought it was a joke, but then she heard it. The singing she had heard in the middle of the night when she couldn't sleep wasn't just chipmunks making noise. It was them singing. She was horrified and immediately picked up her phone to call the man back. But every time her phone connected to his number, he just hung up on her. So she left him a message saying that she wanted to return the furniture. Then she waited for a response. But the man never got back in touch. He was probably laughing at her, thinking that she was the crazy one. And no one else could help. The damage to her wardrobe was far too great, and she certainly didn't want to keep the chipmunks. She would have to find another place to live while animal control fixed the problem. That's when she saw the perfect solution. Her neighbor had recently moved out, and she knew that the owner of the building would allow her to stay in the empty apartment for free if she offered to clean it before the new tenants moved in. It sounded like the perfect solution, but it turned out to be a huge mistake. When she stepped foot into the apartment, she heard the singing again. And when she looked around, she saw hundreds of chipmunks running around the floor. They had followed her from her apartment and had taken up residence in her neighbor's apartment. She called animal control again, but they just laughed at her. They told her to go to a DIY store and pick up some traps and deal with it herself. But every time she managed to trap one of the chipmunks, more seemed to appear. Then one night she woke up in the middle of the night, and she could hear the scratching and squeaking coming from the other room. She got out of bed to investigate. That's when she saw it. One of the chipmunks was sitting on her brand-new kitchen counter, gnawing on a picture of her mom. She had brought the picture with her because it was the only thing she had ever owned that her mother had given her. To see it being destroyed by one of the many chipmunks that had invaded her life was too much for her to take. "That's it!" she shouted. "I'm going to get rid of all of you!" In her anger, she picked up the chipmunk and took it into her kitchen. She filled up her blender with water and ice and dropped the screaming creature in. Then she pressed the button and it was gone in an instant. She drank the icy concoction without hesitation. For the first time in weeks, she slept soundly throughout the night. When she woke up, she went to the kitchen to find the remnants of the chipmunk in the blender. But she noticed that her cat was looking at the machine curiously. "You wouldn't," she asked her cat. "Did you eat the chipmunk?" Her cat looked up at her and let out a meow. It was obvious that she had eaten the rest of the chipmunk. She couldn't help but laugh. Maybe the chipmunk had a purpose after all. From that day on, she made sure to feed her cat-blended chipmunks. Every morning she would set the trap, wait for a chipmunk to run across her path, then take it into the blender and turn it into cat food. It was hard work, but she didn't mind. Finally, she was getting some good use out of her furniture. She kept the best pieces of wood that the chipmunks had chewed through and used them to build a new wardrobe. It took months to complete, but eventually she had created something unique, a wardrobe made of real wood that doubled as a chipmunk farm. She kept the most productive chipmunks in her wardrobe, which she took with her when she moved back to her original apartment after the building owners had finally fixed the damage done by the rodents. She continued to blend the others and feed them to her cat, but she also started saving them. She wanted to open her own business selling blended chipmunk as a superfood for cats. After a few years of saving money, she was ready to open her own factory. She bought a large warehouse on the outskirts of town where she could both make and store her delicious blended chipmunk treats. The locals were shocked when they heard that she was selling a delicacy made entirely of chipmunks, but that just made the product even more popular. Soon she was receiving orders from all over the country, and it all started with a woman's quest to get rid of some annoying chipmunks. But she never could have predicted that her life would change so dramatically after that fateful day. So what do you think? Would you ever eat a chipmunk? Or maybe you would rather hear this crazy story? Well, either way, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.